Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Great Battle, a Korean action film from 2018. So set in the year 645, this film is about the siege of Ansi Fortress and the epic battle involving the Goguryeo troops who attempted to defend the fortress against 500,000 invading Tang Dynasty men. So at the start of the film, we see a battle where the Korean troops are actually defeated. Subsequent to this battle, the leader of the Korean army grows frustrated at the fact that Man-chun of Ansi Fortress has chosen to disengage from the war against the Tang Dynasty. And because of this, Yang is considered a liability, and a young man by the name of Sa-mool is sent to infiltrate the fortress and assassinate him. However, Sa-mool begins to doubt his mission as the Tang Dynasty army marches in their direction. So my overall assessment is that The Great Battle is a pretty good movie. There's nothing particularly bad about it, but there's nothing particularly great about it either. Most everything in this film ranges between good and mediocre in terms of quality. The biggest positive, in my opinion, is the quantity of the action. There are a lot of battles in this movie, and they are enjoyable to watch. There are a few interesting war tactics that are showcased along the way as well. I like the use of harpoons in one particular sequence, specifically. It's probably one of my favorite scenes of the film, because there's a certain, I don't want to spoil it for you, there's a certain tactic by the Tang Dynasty army, and it's counterattacked with the use of harpoons, which is pretty cool. The action in this movie is good in general, and there's plenty of it. On the other hand, I think the story and the characters are pretty generic and predictable. One thing this movie is missing is a compelling conflict within the protagonist army. This is something that's not always necessary in a film of this kind, but the filmmakers apparently assumed that they could not fill the runtime of 2 hours and 16 minutes with just the Tang Dynasty conflict alone. Unfortunately, I did not really find Sa-mool's hesitation to assassinate Yang to be a very compelling subplot. The reason for this is that I never really questioned what was going to happen. I found it to be pretty predictable. Some critics and other movie reviewers have compared this film with The Admiral Roaring Currents, and I would like to do the same here, specifically in relation to the secondary conflict. In The Admiral, the protagonist in that film was having some serious problems with the morale of his forces. Just getting these guys to man up and find the will to fight. The script of that movie provided a compelling story, however, related to that problem, and also gave us a pretty interesting resolution to that problem. The way he inspired his forces during the battle was pretty neat, and I didn't really expect it to go down that way. That's the dramatic X factor that I think The Great Battle is missing, in my opinion. Technical specs are good all around. Production values are there, despite some slightly dodgy CGI. The acting is pretty good overall, and the direction is adequate. They did cast a few Korean actors to play characters from other countries, which is a bit dicey. They did the same thing in The Admiral, by the way. There are plenty of good actors from China and Japan to mine from, so, I would expect Korean filmmakers to tap those resources consistently to help create a more authentic character. If you have a Chinese guy, a Chinese character in your Korean film, just tap somebody from China to come in and play the role. I don't see how that could be too difficult from a logistical standpoint. So, I would hope to see that in the future. One other thing that annoyed me a little bit was the miracle arrow shot at one point in the film, which was, I think it was a bit drawn out and lame of a scene. I didn't really like that scene in particular. It was supposed to be like this big dramatic moment, and it was just like, I don't know. I didn't really like it. I think they could have executed it in a more compelling way, or simply excluded it entirely and done something else for that scene. But, there's really not much more to say about The Great Battle. It's a pretty good movie. I think you'll probably get something out of it if you're in the mood for an action flick. The characters are a little thin, but they're not terrible or anything. They're enough to get you through it. And, it was a fairly enjoyable movie, I think. It should not be a high priority, but it's not something you should actively avoid. I give it a moderate recommendation. And it's currently available on DVD, Blu-ray, and streaming in the United States. And as always, I'll see you next time.